let's take a look at what happens when interest rates change. Let's recall our bond that we priced a little earlier that was paying $100 interest every period and had a face value of $1,000, and we determined that that bond, you'll recall, was priced at $1,000. The value of the interest payments was $851. The value of the principal amount was $149, and it was priced at $1,000. Let's assume that there's an increase in the expected inflation, and we'll assume that expected inflation rises from 4% to 6%, and everything else is constant. So our real rate of return is 3%. Our new inflation amount is 6%. That gives us a risk-free rate of 9%. And if there's a 3% risk premium, our new required return is 12%. So the expected inflation went up by 2%, and our required rate of return, therefore, goes up by 2%. If we look at the same bond that we had, so we're looking at the same bond we looked at earlier, when interest rates in the market for this bond were 10%, the bond was priced at $1,000. What happens if the market changes its required return? Well, we have to revalue the bond. And we'll revalue the bond. The bond is paying still $100 every period. That's the annuity amount. So here at the bottom of this particular slide, what we see is the present value of the annuity piece, in other words, the interest portion, where our annuity amount is $100. The present value interest factor for the annuity, now we're going to look that up again, and we're going to use 12% instead of 10%. That's the only change really that takes place, is this little guy right here. The interest rate changed. Everything else about the bond is the same as it was. So we apply that. The present value of the annuity payments is $746.90. We also have to adjust for the principal amount. We're going to calculate the present value of the principal payment of $1,000 received 20 years from now. So this is the process for doing that. It's exactly the same as what we did. The only thing we changed is that interest rate. Okay. What we find is, instead of being worth $851, the present value of the interest payments is now $747 approximately, and also the present value of the principal amount, principal payment at maturity, has also declined, and the value of our bond is now $850. So when the expected inflation rate rose, that impacted the required rate of return on our bond. The required rate of return went up, but the bond's terms didn't change, so it still was only paying $100 on the face value of $1,000. The required return is now 12%. This bond's only paying 10% of its face amount. That's not enough for the market to continue to price it at $1,000, and the price went down. There's an important general point here, and that is when interest rates go up, when this interest rate right there, the discount rate, the yield to maturity, when that goes up, the price of the bond is going to go down. They're inversely related to one another. Rates go up, prices go down. Let's look what happens if there's a decrease in the inflation premium. Let's assume that instead of 4%, it declined to 2%, so that our required return has declined from 10% to 8%. All right, our 20-year bond still has a 10% coupon payment. Okay, that's the coupon amount. In other words, it's still paying $100. The only thing that changes in the valuation process is the interest rate. It's gone from 10% down to 8%. Okay? Interest rates have gone down. we should expect that the bond price is going to go up. And we see that the value of the annuity portion, in fact, has gone up from $851 up to $981. Right? Likewise, the present value of the principal amount, we're changing that. The only thing that changes is the interest rate. We still have a $1,000 principal payment. When we change the interest rate, the present value interest factor changes. We add those two together. We come to a new value on the bond of $1,197 approximately. So our interest rate here went down. The bond price went up. This is a generalizable rule. We see a bond price table here. This is a set of prices for, in every case, the same bond making a 10% interest payment. In other words, the coupon amount is 10% on a $1,000 bond. In other words, it's making $100 payments every year in interest, and this is for a 20-year bond. So those terms are the same. The only thing that's changing as we look across this bond is the yield to maturity, or the discount rate, the interest rate that the market's requiring. When the yield to maturity is 10%, well, that's what the bond's paying. The bond's paying 10%. The market prices this at par. Prices the bond at par, prices it at $1,000. When interest rates go down, if the market's only requiring 2% and this bond is paying 10%, well, wow, this bond's quite a bargain. It's paying much more than is required by the market, and so the market adjusts the price upward because this is a very valuable bond. It's paying 10% when the market only requires 2%. So the bond price rises, in this case, to over $2,000, more than twice as much as the face value of the bond, more than twice as much as the par value of the bond. On the other hand, at the other extreme, the market's required return went up to 25%. This bond's payment terms haven't changed. It's still paying $100 on a $1,000 bond every year. The market wants more than that. The bond's terms don't change, therefore the price has to. What happens? The price falls. So the point here again is, as interest rates go up, right here, right, the bond price is going down.